Now I would like to invite my two sons and Andy Redmond to join me at this table, and we will be happy to answer all the questions, whatever they are, right now. So, first son coming up is Breck Eisner. Breck is a motion picture director. My next son, Eric Eisner. I spent much of his youth trying to talk him out of going to Grateful Dead concerts. He now has produced a fantastic Grateful Dead 6-part, 4-hour documentary, which goes on Amazon in June. It's fantastic. Andy Redmond. Andy is the, Andy, go ahead. Andy is the president of Tonante and the chairman of the Topps Company, and all three of them together don't add up to my age. I want to point that out. We are prepared now to answer questions.
I think first of all, ladies and gentlemen, another warm round of applause for Michael Eisner and the address he's just given. So the question and answer is going to work as this. You can see microphones being placed in various positions around the room. Rather than the roaming mic, we're going to ask you to come to the microphone if you have questions you would like to ask. So don't be shy, get up, and then I will effectively point to you and indicate when we're going to come to you. So feel free to get up now and make your way over to the microphones if you've got some questions to ask. While people do that, we're going to go just through a few questions. We've been asking for email questions over the past couple of weeks, and we're going to go through some of the key points that have come up. The most common question was why Portsmouth, but I think, Michael, you've addressed that one pretty clearly in that presentation.
Those were great. Thank you very much.
I think it's on.
Now it's on. Yeah, I think the presentation really explains it, but basically it is so unusual to see a fan base and a support for a team like Portsmouth. I first went to a football game in Europe when my third son was studying in London, and saw Arsenal play in their old stadium. And I couldn't believe how exciting it was compared to, you read a book during a baseball game in the US, you go out to the bathroom for an hour, you don't miss anything. It was so amazing. And then I had gone to a few others because of Topps, some championship games and so forth. And then I came here in the second league, the fourth division, and it was though you had won 4 Academy Awards in a row. And it was so amazing that we started to study the idea of investing in a sports franchise. And I've told this to a few people before, but in the media you now realize that the work that I've been doing, my sons are doing in the content creation, which I think is the most important part of media, is now on demand. You can see any movie, any show, anytime on Hulu or Netflix or comparable distribution platforms. But sports has to be live. So we decided as a group that would be really the right kind of investment. And then we obviously moved toward football because it was the world sport. It's coming to the US, and every Saturday and Sunday on NBC is the Premier League. The Bundesliga is there, La Liga is there. And then we decided we would look in Europe, and then if we're going to look in Europe, the best place for sports is actually in England. And then we looked at the Premier League, and we thought, oh my God, that's really a nightmare. And all you can do is go down. And then we said, well, wait a second. In the past, what we've done is find great things and help move them back up. And the first thing that came to light was obviously Portsmouth, the history, and we called. Nobody called us. It wasn't for sale. There was no information in the newspaper. And we made a kind of a blind call. Hey, what are you guys thinking about the future? So it really was a methodical 2 or 3 year process that ended up to the very obvious. And so that's why Portsmouth.
Brilliant, Michael. Thank you to you two gentlemen there. We'll come to you in a moment. Don't be shy. Do please come up to the microphone if you have questions to ask. There's one over on the left side of the room, one over on the right, and we'll come to those in a moment. There's just a couple more points I want to get to. First, something you touched on yesterday. We've had a number of emails in asking why the Pompey Supporters Trust can't retain some sort of a stake in the club.
Well, it's more technical than anything else. There's a tremendous investment that is looming ahead. It's not just the investment for safety and security. It's an investment for improving Fratton Park. It's an investment to enhance the academy, and then obviously it's the investment in the team itself. And all the way along, for quite a while, it's losses. And every time you invest, other owners are decreased in their ownership.
One thing some people said is, could there not be a golden share of, say, 10%? Is that something that could have happened?
Well, no matter what the percentage is, if somebody puts in money, some other puts in money, those that own shares, value goes down. Just like, I believe it was 50-50 ownership, but when one of the presidents invested in Roku, the other investors are reduced. So this would happen every 3 months. So it's, in the end of the day, whatever it was would go quickly down to almost zero. So on that basis, it made no sense. And if you said there would be a floor, that's just additional compensation. We felt the compensation was fair, considering the enormous investment, the foreboding investment that you face as you move into, obviously, League One. But then when you get into the championship, you've all read about what that could mean, managed badly. If you then aspire to get in the premiership, that's expensive and staying there. So because the major investment for us is not the acquisition, the major investment for us is getting a team that sustains itself year in and year out. We felt that we should buy. If we're going to do it, we should own the whole team.
Before we come to the gentleman on the floor, just one more. Could you just talk a bit more about the roles Eric and Breck will have at Portsmouth?
Well, let me have them do it then.
That sounds right.
Yeah. Hello everyone. Can we hear okay? Yeah. Alluded to or mentioned in the presentation was something called the Eisner Foundation, which we're all very proud of. The Eisner Foundation is a nonprofit that was set up for by our family about 20 years ago to serve underserved people in Southern California, where we all live. The structure of that foundation is the family, myself, Eric, our brother Anders, my mother, and father. The 5 of us comprise the board. And then there's a man named Trent, who's the CEO, who's been the CEO since 2008. Trent comes to us with his recommendations. He does all the work. He is the expert. And 99.9% of the time, our meetings consist of Trent telling us what he wants to do and us saying, that sounds fantastic, do it, it's the right call. It's a fairly large foundation, and as a family, it's been a wonderful structure working together. And it is a single foundation represented by the entire board. So we feel it is a similar situation for this, although this is even more fun, potentially.
So, you can hear me. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I would definitely be involved, and it's something that I'm very excited to be. This is my 5th trip here already. Saturday will be my 4th game. So far, the win-loss record is pretty good. Hopefully it gets better. I am a sports fan, number one. I am a sports guy. I am not football mad yet, but I'm close. So the extension of this makes sense. They talked about the Tops company. I'm on the board of Tops. Andy is the chairman of the board of Tops. The foundation is the way our family works as well. So I think the extension to come work here seems to be very natural. And in the short term, it's really to work on the strategy that they've implemented and execute upon that. And in the long term, hopefully it's more of a seamless continuity, passing of the guard type thing, transition.
Basically, Andy, who has 3 sons, as I have 3 sons, about 100 years younger, as the head of Tornante, is also much more knowledgeable about soccer. I say soccer meaning U.S. soccer, but also international football than I am. And Andy will work closely with Mark. I might as well mention the Heritage Advisory situation. We're gonna create, and I know there's been a lot of conversation about this, we are gonna create a Heritage and Advisory Board. And that will consist of 6 previous owners of the club, 3 from the President's Group, 3 from the PST. Included in that, it will also include 2 management members in Portsmouth and then 2 of us. And that group, and I said it in my presentation, will advise on all matters. In addition, that group will hold the veto rights that we talked about. But that group will be like what Breck said Trent is. They will discuss everything from player personnel to community operations, to the stadium, to pricing, to all the rest of it. We will, as owners and investors, have, yes, the final say financially. And I'm sure we will weigh in with what we read in the local paper and say, what was that, and all that stuff. But basically, it'll be run professionally as Breck described our foundation. But Andy's on the line, Breck, Eric, and Anders there. Eric particularly, because he lives in New York and it's closer, will be very involved. My wife, well, let me put it this way. 50 years ago, I took her to a baseball game to see if she was fit for me. And she did the crossword puzzle for the entire game. And we still got married, and it worked. So she probably will have a few ideas, but maybe they'll be about the colors. Not old colors.
Right. Thank you very much for your patience. The gentleman there in the blue jumper.
I'm sure we all welcome your interest and proposals for the club, but many of us have concerns about protecting the negative control, if you like, we've had over the club over the last few years. And stuff happens, especially with US corporations, and you have an interesting president now. We would like to ensure that we can have some say over what happens to our club in the future. And the you've made a nice gesture with the heritage suggestions, but they don't seem to go anything like far enough, in particular with regards to any future change of control. Your intentions seem to be to keep this as a family company, but as I said before, stuff happens. You may not be able to continue in the future to own Portsmouth even if you'd like to, or to finance it as you'd like to, totally out of your control. So, and I also think the offer might be a little bit premature, maybe because of the exclusivity period. Lots of details have to be worked out beyond the subject to contract detail stuff. So would you please consider maybe withdrawing the offer to revise it and update it? For example, League One aspects aren't built in yet. The fact of promotion must have an impact. The two-part consideration, you know that the PST can't accept the formulaic payment, yet you've continued with it in the offer. There's a lot in the offer that could be sensibly worked out. Alternatively, will you be coming back if there's a rejection next week? If there's a big rejection, there could just be a big rejection because of the detail of the offer as it stands, not because of you. Please consider those 2 alternatives.
Well, I do understand, and I think Ian said this to me, or somebody said this to me, if you're bitten by a dog once, you're afraid of a dog forever. I think that's true. Sometimes it depends on the dog. I don't agree with your point of view, and no, we're not going to change the offer, and we're not going to come back if you reject it. I can understand rejecting it. I would be sympathetic to those that feel it should be rejected, but I feel we have taken into consideration all of the potential of the club, the hard work that has to be done in the club, and the offer and the generosity, I think, and the transparency that we are going to have going forward. It is a daunting exercise for us, and I understand it is a difficulty for you to give up negative control. But you can't expect two things. You can't expect every foreign owner to be the same, and I would say that resumes don't often mean a lot, but I have managed 3 different companies in the content area. The fans that are Disney fans are equally as fanatic as your fans. They demand amazing transparency. The pressure on management to do the right thing at Disney, to, at one hand, understand the family nature of the company, the other hand, understand that if you stand still and don't adapt to the current sociological environments, that your company is going to stall and go away. I think the example of Disney, not the financial example, but the respect around the world of that company, or Paramount or ABC, has already been exemplified. So I don't take offense. Some of my American owners have not been great. You can manage Mr. Trump. I don't plan to. I can't stand behind the embarrassment of some of our leaders or some of the people who have owned football clubs. We are what we are, like Popeye says, we are what we are. And if you think that's a good direction for your club, if you think we will fairly manage it and be transparent, but not give you the right to approve who they may sell it to in 60 years, not give the right to tell us how to run it day in, day out. If you don't want us to have that, don't give it to us. But I don't think any new owner would make the kind of deal that you're suggesting, but you could go it alone, and that, from what I understand reading the papers, is viable. It's going to be tough, but from what I see, it's on the edge of being viable, but it could be viable.
Gentleman over here on the left-hand side.
Good evening. Mr. Eisner, I'm very happy to take you at face value, and I have no reason to doubt anything that you've said. But the reason that we got into such a pickle was that we had a satisfactory owner, Milan Mandaric, but when he decided to pass the club on, we got into all sorts of trouble. On the day that you are either unable or unwilling to continue as owner of Portsmouth Football Club, how can you reassure all of us that we wouldn't end up back in the same place?
Well, I would like to think that you would think that our family is such and our reputation is such that we wouldn't consider having you end up in the same place. But that's hoping that you trust that that would be that way. There is no way for me to guarantee in 30 years that something will happen in the world that makes football uneconomic, or something that happens in the world that makes our family uneconomic, and the decision is to sell. There's no way to promise in writing that you would be protected. And if that is the overriding problem with selling to us or anybody else, you should not sell it. You should keep it and run it as it is. I cannot promise you that everything comes out right.
Can I just add one thing?
Yes, sorry, Andy, go for it.
So, I mean, I hope that over the course of hearing us through the media and so forth, what we're trying to express is we're trying to be as open and transparent as possible from the very outset. We think that's quite different than the historic other transfers of other clubs throughout the history of England. But the reason we don't want to promise things that we aren't going to deliver, because we don't know what the future holds, is that we are trying to be open and transparent. And so we believe that it's a it's a very different ownership opportunity you have here in front of you, reflected by a history of treating many companies that way, including currently the companies that we own and manage. And hopefully, as Michael's describing, hopefully you all will agree with that. But we don't want to promise things which other owners may have promised you all in the past and then not deliver on.
And let me add one thing. We would hope also that the next generation, we do not have a huge drop-off there. We would hope to gain your trust in our operation abilities as well. So over the term, you will get there.
The gentleman down here on the right.
Thank you, Michael, for coming this evening. I listened to you last night on Express FM. I've listened to you on Radio Seldons. I've read about the report that you've given in the news, and you've come across as very, very impressive. You certainly do talk the talk. But can I ask you some fundamental questions? People in this room and the supporters, we give financial and emotional support to the club. We demand 100% commitment and effort from players and staff, but we don't demand a financial return. My question is in two parts. Bearing in mind that the options of making money from a football club is limited in terms of matchday sales, TV income, player sales, and sale of the ground, where do you see you getting your investment from in return? And secondly, we suffered greatly at the hands of previous owners, but we've been spared the suffering of the owners separating the ownership of the ground from the club. Why can't you provide a guarantee that the club is not moved to another location without proper consultation and approval from the supporters of the club and the footballing authorities? Secondly, the club owners are prevented from separating the ownership of Fratton Park from Portsmouth Football Club unless approval is provided by the supporters and the relevant football authorities. And finally, that the club owners are prohibited from selling the club for personal gain. Now, those last assurances are not something that I have come across, but I also understand that they're included in the policy documents produced by the organisation, by the Supporters Direct, whose Chief Executive Officer is also the Chairman of the Pompey Supporters Trust.
So let me just interject to summarise there. First question simply, how are you going to get your investment back? And then secondly, I guess why won't you make the promise not to separate the club and the ground?
Let me do the second, because it was a multi-part question.
Yeah.
I don't think, first of all, I don't like debts. Look at my history, look at Disney's history since I was there, look at Topps, it's all public, very, very little debt. We're not going to finance the acquisition or the initial things with debt. However, if someday you have to build a stadium and everybody thinks that's the right idea, and no, we're not going to build it in Southampton, that's... We're not going to build it in the Isle of Wight unless you put a bridge or a tunnel to it. Financially, you cannot tie a company's hands behind its back if it has a very expensive commitment like building a stadium. Everybody finances those kind of massive entertainment projects or real estate projects. So for us to make a commitment that could be, I don't even want to say how big it could be, but in the tens and tens and tens and tens of millions of pounds, we cannot be, unless we're really idiots, we cannot be bound by the lack of being able to leverage. Now, anybody if you're maybe an arms dealer, and you put the stadium outside of the ownership of the club, and you then make it so you could actually sell one off without building a new stadium, whatever it is, you are making the club worth zero. So when you ask me what is our potential financial recovery, that certainly isn't a way to get there. Now, the first part of the question is, how do you get there? I've asked that question 1,000 times to Andy Redmond, because as I look at the obligations of what you'll lose per year only in League One, and what you could lose every year in the championship, and what is the team worth in the championship? What it seems to me, it could be worth less money than you put in to get to the championship, which is what I'm sure you all talk about all the time as well. So the answer is management, consistency. Don't shoot from the hip. Don't change your manager every 6 weeks. Don't buy ridiculously expensive players. Don't look at the averages of what other people lose and expect, oh, that's the norm. Homegrown talent. Grow your own talent. Make the academy pay off. Find John Travolta before he's John Travolta. That is the only way to run it, because if you run it with a desire, with a hope, oh my God, we're going to get in the Premier League, and you spend 80 million pounds to get there, 2 years later, you're going to lose 180 million pounds, and you're going to shut down. So I'm doing it because I think I want to invest outside the United States. A little nervous about our management in the United States. I want to invest in sports. I think this is the right sport. I want to invest in a team that has exactly what you have. What team could get this kind of group to come and talk about buying or selling a team? It's pretty amazing. And I want to work with my 3 sons and their children in having a family that plays together, stays together. I think in the end of the day, I'm not sure, that we'll do okay financially. But I don't know that. If I haven't done as well as I'd done at Disney, this would be a crazy investment. These are tough investments. But it's possible that we know something that maybe a lot of other people don't realize. And what a great franchise, and I don't really like that word, but what a great spirit there is here. But when you invest that kind of money, you can't put handcuffs behind it and say, you have to keep things separate, you can't have leverage, we have to have the right to block any new deal, you can't do this, you can't do that. We have to have a certain flexibility. But let me just say this again, if you don't want us to have it, please vote against it, because I only want to do this, and I mean this, if, forget a small minority, but the majority of the people in this city want us to do it. I went to Disney. They were doing so badly they would have taken a person in a coffin. They were thrilled to have me. They were thrilled, and I had such support that we were able to put a team together to do it. And the same thing happened at the other places that I discussed. I don't want to go into a situation where there's contention, where people think I'm ripping them off, where people think I'm going to end up selling to some, I don't want to be specific, but some bad guy. If that is the thought, I won't be unhappy, because I will know this is the wrong thing for us to do. But if you think we're sometimes, I said this the other night, there can be 2 right answers. I learned this at Disney when I was agonizing over where to put a new hotel. And the ex-CEO came up to me and said, sometimes there are 2 right answers. Both answers of where you would have put that hotel could be right, or both answers could be wrong. It is possible, it is right for you at this time not to take on either domestic or foreign owner. It also may be right at this time for you to get the insurance policy from a family like ours. That's for you to decide.
So just to summarise, in terms of where you're going to get your return on investment, at the minute, you're not sure, but you think this is the right industry in the long term to invest in. Is that a fair summary?
Well, I don't know where we're going to get it. I didn't know that The Lion King was going to be a hit. I thought it was going to be another film. I assume over time 3 young players coming out of our academy who we have options on for 3 more years are going to get this team where it has to be. I don't think it's going to be somebody writing in that Messi is available at 46. I don't think that would be a good choice.
But so the only 1 or 2 other things I just want to highlight about the way that we manage our companies, and it was briefly touched on in Michael's presentation, but it's crucial to us that there is on-the-ground management that is absolutely fantastic. It has been rumored that we've looked at other clubs. There is a very specific reason that we're here. There are elements of that are, most importantly, you all as the fans, Fratton Park and so forth. But it's important to note that the job that Mark has already done, and Tony, and the job that we expect they may be able to do in the future is a crucial element to that. Michael's career, as you notice here, he doesn't talk about himself as an outside investor or anything like that. He's an operator, and we focus fundamentally on the operations of our companies. We only do things in media and entertainment. We have, quite a bit of expertise in television, in sports, including, currently with the Topps company, where we're a licensee of the biggest league in this country, the biggest competition in the world, the Champions League. And, we have a pretty good handle on the overall football economics. And we believe there's a long-term opportunity here, as Michael referenced in the presentation, that we believe the opportunity here is naturally bigger than where you are today.
I should mention one thing. You said, why Portsmouth? And this is dangerous, because when we got here and we met Mark, I said to Andy, and we haven't talked to Mark except, would you stay on if we owned it? He said, yes, but we haven't talked, so this is going to cost me a fortune. I said to Andy, we can't do it without this guy. I've spent my life trusting and dealing with managers. He seems to do it all right. Everything he says in the press seems to be smart. He hasn't committed to me. He hasn't committed to anybody. He seems to handle it all well. So that is an asset you all have. And if you don't.
Let's try and rattle through a few more if we can before time is against us. Gentleman over there on the left.
Good evening, Mike. I'd like to, first of all, I've been a supporter of Portsmouth Football Club since 1948. I'm also a trust shareholder, and when I paid my £1,000, I just said goodbye to that, but it went to a good cause, and I think the Supporters Trust have done a good job. However, as has already been mentioned, we've had several spurious so-called owners, including a fake sheikh, who promised all sorts of things. If anyone had spent any time in the Middle East, he wasn't even known in Dubai. But that's beside the point. I would just like to say, to my knowledge, and I'll be corrected by wiser people in the audience than myself, I think this is the very first time, in my knowledge, since 1948, that a prospective owner has come and talked to the supporters and has been open and transparent, and your 42-page detailed of what you're offering, etc., is illuminating. And I would like to thank you. And finally, I would just like to say, hopefully on behalf of the majority of people here this evening, thank you very much, and I hope it goes well. Thank you.
Is there a question?
No.
Gentleman in red at the back there.
Gentlemen, you're a successful businessman, and successful businessmen have a strategy. From a Portsmouth point of view, where would you like to see your vision over the next 3 to 5 years? If we stood in now in 5 years' time and said, what's the benchmark?
Well, I would say, this may not make anybody happy either. I think we have to be conservative. I think our strategy would be to obviously immediately fix the safety problems inside the stadium, to begin to enhance the academy, to give Mark enough but not too much to play competitively in League One, to be solid in League One for a number of years. We don't have to get to the championship in 1 year. It could be 2, 3, 4 years. Then to get to the championship, and again, as I said before, have our academy beginning to pay off. Our strategy is not to get into the Premier League tomorrow, but our strategy is someday to get in the Premier League. But it is not to spend ourselves in a hole that forces leverage, that forces anxiety, and that forces instant gratification and long-term disappointment. Other than that, we haven't done all of the due diligence on exactly A, B, and C what has to be done. I'll tell you, when we met with a board, the first meeting, and it was like getting into a fraternity at college. And they talked and they said, well, we have this problem about moving the Fratton Park and this, that, and the other thing, but we'll talk about it. You go out and sit outside. We're in that old IBM building. So we sat outside. We didn't know what to talk about, so we said, well, the stadium's going to be an issue. So why don't we go back in? How far should we say we can move it? So, I don't know, somebody said 15 miles. They could have said 15 kilometers. I don't know, 15 miles. We didn't have a protractor, but we did when we got home. We drew the circle. Looked like there was a lot of water, a lot of forest. And we don't want to, I think when Arsenal built this big thing, it was more fun when it was smaller. I think being Fratton Park, as long as we could be there, would be great. Let me tell you this. I was a New York Giant baseball fan growing up. At 16, I listened to every single 152 games on the radio. Almost flunked out of school. I didn't even go to my cousin's wedding. I was in the car listening to the radio. They moved to San Francisco. I'm still depressed about it. I can't even go to a San Francisco game. When the Angels beat San Francisco, I felt slight retribution. I am not interested in moving, but we have to have the ability within, a decent confines and as close as we can to where we are. So, we're just developing our strategy, but our strategy is hopefully to do the right thing and to listen to what, they're not just fans, they're also intelligent people who understand what a sports team means.
And the gentleman at the microphone in the dark at the back.
Yeah, if you don't mind my saying, you're in the process of taking the club away from the fans.
Sorry, can you say that again, sir?
What message do you think it sends to us if you won't give us a fan on the board, a stake in the club? It's just like we're going to be standing outside a closed door, like we've been before.
Well, let me answer that, because I know it's been asked a lot. First of all, let's talk strategy, and then we'll talk privacy. I think it's better to have 6 local, knowledgeable ex-investors in a room with Mark, with Tony, and with 2 of us, outlining what should be done going forward. Recognizing that it's going to be, like it is in our foundation, a recommendation up to the family as to whether or not we approve. To put somebody, the word board is a little odd for this kind of thing, but really is our family. And the decision that's going to be made is, oh, will you spend £4 million, I'm making it up, on this? And then we say, well, £4 million, we have bonds coming in, we have capital gains, we should sell this, do we need this stock? I don't want a non-family member in that room. I don't want the temptation of gossip. I'm much happier having 6 fans, which is connotes fanatics. Really, I want 6 people, knowledgeable people about the team, working here. I'm just private, and I know it sounds slightly offensive, I guess, that you're saying you're going to be sitting outside the door. I don't see it. I don't see it that way. But if you see it that way, I apologize. But we're trying to figure out.
Gentleman in the beige on the left here.
Good evening, Mr. Eisner. My apologies if there's a slight repetition of an earlier point, but given that you said that it would be extremely dumb to separate the assets of the football club, such as the ground, from the football club, why are you unwilling to give a commitment to do something that would be extremely dumb?
I would have to look at the context of how I said that, because I don't think I said it that way. What would be really dumb is not to be able to finance a new stadium if it had to happen. It would be dumb to separate it, not necessarily on a bank statement, but to consider selling off one without selling them together. It would be dumb not keeping all the assets together. Would it be dumb in a financial sense to find a way to finance it? No. Would it be dumb, as I said before, to render your team worthless, which is what happened to you before? That was because whoever, I don't know the exact facts, but whoever owned the team was obviously going under in his other businesses and got caught up in some kind of margin call or something. I really don't know what happened. But you can't handicap a financial organization that is trying to move forward in a sensible way. I guess anything you do, you could do things to ruin your team. You can ruin a business. You can run Domino Pizza into the ground by not having them hot. I don't know. Hopefully we won't do anything that destroys, but does the opposite, which grows it. And that, we did 100-year bonds at Disney. And I was told when we did 100-year bonds, only 2 companies in the United States have even been around 100 years. These things change. It is a miracle you've had one club that has been around 120 years. That is quite an accomplishment. And we hope to continue that. I mean, if we don't, we really are dumb, to continue that momentum.
We're just running out of time, so we're going to go to the last couple of questions. One on email talks about the upcoming vote. You said you obviously don't want a contentious acquisition. We know obviously certain fans disagree. The PST board, for example, is split. Maybe some of the presidents are split. Moving to the vote, what kind of percentage are you considering things not to be contentious? You looking at you need 60, 70% of the vote? How would you view that outcome?
It could be 51% of the vote if the other 49% we could feel said fair. It was a fair contest. Unlike the United States right now, we're together and we're going to go forward. If that is not the case, we're not interested. It could be 90%. It is not a percentage. We will be able to tell by the way, there's a lot of Twitter talk, there's a lot of Facebook talk, there's a lot of media talk. We will know whether it's contentious. I don't mind a fair vote. I don't mind a sensible people saying, for just the reason we were asked, we really feel more comfortable going alone for a couple more years. So be it. But if not, and they decide that we're good temporary managers of your club, and we feel that it's a positive thing, we're on board. I can't be definitive. It's too big a decision for us. I know it's a big decision for you. It's also a big decision for us. This is not like buying something that, oh my God, we really did we hit a home run. The only way for hit us a home run is to earn it.
Okay, the very final question. I'm sorry to everyone who's stood up and queued at the microphone that we haven't been able to get everyone. Gentleman down here in the blue, you've got the final question.
Just a quick one. We've got the heritage share, which I guess is non-valued, no value to it, which I personally have no problem. As the gentleman said, when we put our money into the club, it was emotional, not financial. And I'm just a little concerned that perhaps we should expand that and explain it, because across the piece, I suspect that people haven't quite made the connection between, if you were to follow the suit of, I won't say Friends, but down the road in Brighton, their owners have put in 250 million over the last 5 years. Okay? That is increasing the value of the share, and I understand your point that if you gave us one share, we've suddenly made an awful lot of money for doing nothing, and you've done all the hard work. But if we have the share, the heritage share, that covers the basic issues, particularly things like whether it's a copyright or not, the crest, that says, if we don't like the new crest, which is basically what the PST said, you tell us which crest you like, whether it's genuine or not, we'll use it. Is that such a hard thing to put in place? Working on the distance away from the current Fratton Park, is that such a hard thing if people genuinely don't like it, and this is a family, the fans and yourselves, if we say, oh, actually, we don't want to be in that location, would you listen? And finally, if we ever did manage to raise the value, £300 million if you ever chose to sell it, I think it's a bit unlikely, but if we did, could there not just be this clause that said if we could raise the £300 million to buy our own club back at the end of it, if you wish to sell it, we had first vote. We had first choice in buying it.
It's about a four-part question, and I will answer it. One, we've agreed for the next 50 years we will not change the name, we will not change the colors, we will not move we're not intending to move now, but if we do, we're not going to move more than 15 miles away. We are not going to go into a Southampton postal code.
Scummers!
Right? We did offer that for those of you, and I think the president's, that offer still stands, that if you want to make a risk with us, that we will give double the money you put in as we move up automatically, but we were told that the PST could not accept that kind of offer. What we cannot do is the thing you said last, is to, and nobody that owns an asset would do that, to give a first refusal, per se, on selling a company in 40 years to anybody, which would depress any possible sale. Would we want to sell it? Would anybody want to sell it? I guess they do, because all these football teams in the UK are selling it to strange people, I would say. At least economically strange. I can't be the master of the kind of investment that we would have and not have the flexibility of our family being able to, at some day, not curse me in the grave for having made a deal that ties their hands. I just can't do that.
No, I wasn't suggesting that you had to accept it. I was suggesting that if you were thinking of selling it, we had the same sort of exclusivity that you've received in case we could purchase at a price that was suitable for you.
I've just never seen anybody do that owns an asset, and we have been asked for doing that.
You should never say never.
But there's one more element to what you had asked about the crest, which I'm just not sure that everyone in this room understands, because this is a point that was originally in our documents, but ultimately, the club does not own the crest. Your own club can confirm that to you directly. It's not an issue that we originally were uncomfortable with. It's something that ultimately, for any club, whether or not you vote for our deal, you all ought to address that you don't own the current crest.
Yeah,
That's not
the
point
issue
I was
is
making. The point I was making is we have a crest.
you don't have a crest.
We have that there that by use has never been challenged. We have changed it 5 times in the last 10 years, to my knowledge.
No, but let me explain this, because I'm not an expert in a lot.
badge.
I'm not an expert in a lot. I am an expert in crests. One, it's owned by, let's say, Richard the Lionhearted. It's now owned by the city. You have a non-exclusive license of it. You don't have, as far as we can figure out, a copyright or a trademark. If we are going to run a professional team, part of the, and when as you move up, the financial fair play plays into this in getting players on the squad. You need as much revenue as you can to be able to pay for players. Part of that revenue, and the reason that Manchester United and some of these big teams can so outspend anybody else, is their merchandise is so valuable. Right now, it's fine. Nobody's trying to rip you off. But you gotta have a person 1 block from Fratton Park putting out your crest on a baseball cap and selling it, and there's no recourse that it'll work for the team. The crest or the logo or whatever you end up calling it becomes the image for your, whether it's high quality, whether it's part of your uniform, whether it's baseball caps, around the world. I walk in Southern California down the street with a Bayern Munich hat if I've been to their game, or a Manchester United hat. People stop me on the street, particularly in Los Angeles, where it's very football understanding from South America. They know these crests. Your crest has to be copywritten, has to be trademarked, and it has to be unique enough that it is not confusing to an audience. Now, do we intend to change the color? Do we intend to change the half moon? Do we intend to change the 8-pointed star? No. Do we intend to have the Heritage Advisory Board opine on the crest? Yes. But you can't, we would have said yes if you owned it and had a copy written. Even though it's changed, I have an email today with 10 of your crests from the last. So we would have loved to give it to you. And by the way, let me say, and I'll finish, I'll shut up forever. When I went to, if you looked at Disney's images, Walt's signature, Mickey Mouse, any of the movies, Snow White, anything, every image is changed. They look, if you look at them together, you say they're changed. If you look at Walt's signature now, it's much cleaner, it's a little more modern, a little better handwriting than he had, but it's still his signature. Mickey Mouse does not look like he looked in 1935, but it's still Mickey Mouse. You can't stand still. So for us to be asked to lock something in a veto that keeps us into yesterday is not smart. It's just, but we're willing, we don't want to change the name, we don't want to really move, we don't want to change the colors, but we like to have some flexibility in nurturing it. That's the end of it.
Breckler's kindly said we will have one more question, so the gentleman at the back on the right.
There's two things I want to address. The first thing is, I want everybody to stick their hands together for all the PST shareholders, all the syndicates, and all the presidents that when the time is right, everybody stood up to the line and stuck their hands in their pockets to see if there's a club that you're interested in. I want everybody in this room tonight to stick their hands together for everybody that stuck their hands in their pockets, whether it was $1,000, $100,000, or fucking 50 quid, right? That I want everybody to start.
Just have to apologise for the language for radio listeners.
And my second point is, for our prospective board, what's the first thing that comes into your head when you hear the word scum? That's a valid question.
Anything you would like to say to the panel here?
It's in a postal code that we won't move the team to.
And on that note, we're going to have to bring things to an end. Michael, is there any final word you'd like to say? Any final word you'd like to say?
No, I just want to thank everybody.
Excuse me, some of us have been here. I was the second person up on the floor. Everybody else has got to speak.
Yeah, go ahead, take it.
We've had something...
Okay, yeah, we'll take one more question, yeah.
Firstly...
Where are you?
Sorry, I'm over here.
Okay.
Over here. My name's Steve Weems. I'm Portsmouth City Councillor. I'm not precious about selling my shares. I've supported the club under a number of different owners, so I don't actually care who owns it. I like owning it, but I don't mind. But what I have to say is, when a business takes over another business, it looks to make money. It doesn't look to lose money. So it must either increase its income or reduce its costs, or both. How's it going to increase its income if Tarante take over? Sorry, can I finish the question, please?
Carry on, yeah, let's have the question.
The scope is limited.
Hold on, can you speak clearer into the microphone? The panel can't hear you.
Okay. I'll stand further away. How's it going to, or if it can't increase income, how's it going to reduce costs? So far, my fear is the proposal allows the separation of ownership of club and ground and allows
So we have been over this already.
Can I finish the question?
Okay, is there a question you have that we haven't had as yet, sir?
Yes. The question is, why is there 15 miles within the limit on this when St Mary's is 14 and a half miles away?
Sorry. Well, let me just clarify, only because
Let Andy Redmond come in there.
Because that question has come up so many times. Just so it's clear, the vote that you all are taking, because we had to at some point in time publish documents, you have the documents. We are going to, in the final legal documents, it will specifically say the club will not be moved into the Southampton postcode. I think that's...
Michael, if I just invite you, if you'd like a final word, anything final you'd like to say to draw this meeting to a close?
To do what?
A final word, anything you'd like to say to draw this to a close?
Yeah, I would just say, this has been kind of fun, actually. Thank you all. The hospitality. The hospitality has outperformed the hostility. And we appreciate even being considered for this. And it's created a lot of conversation between a father and three sons. So it's not all lost. It's all good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.